Hello, welcome to NeoScribe. I think it's safe to say most fellow Americans can recognize many US cities by just the silhouettes. Skylines, in a way, serve as signatures for many cities, and some of the individual skyscrapers themselves have become iconic over the years. Skyscrapers often symbolize civic unity and pride, so when I came across an article about the Triangle Tower, Paris' first skyscraper in almost 50 years, I was intrigued. First off, the render of the tower looks incredible, like a glass house of cards. And I started reading the article assuming Parisians must be excited about this stunning tower, but in reality this is far from the truth. It's strange, over the years when viewing images of Europe's major cities or seeing the cities in movies, the lack of skyscrapers didn't stand out to me. The focus went to the iconic historical landmarks, and rightly so. And by extension, it never occurred to me to think why this was the case. But I found out much of this boils down to heritage, tradition, and practicality. First, the cities in Europe were full of historic buildings before the first skyscrapers were built in Chicago and New York in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. And European governments didn't want to tamper with the historic buildings, let alone replace them with skyscrapers. Even after World War II, European governments restored their cities to their pre-war state as much as they could. And European attitudes overall towards skyscrapers went a step further in the 60s and 70s. Skyscrapers were trending during this time, and some cities in Europe were demolishing old buildings and replacing them with high-rises. Some of these cities were particularly more aggressive in this practice than others, notably Brussels. Many Europeans found tall buildings to be unsightly, and they thought that they ruined the charm of the cities, so much so that the term Brusselization was coined to describe the situation. This response to Brusselization led to sweeping regulations and restrictions that impeded the construction of skyscrapers across the continent. Fast forward to today, European cities preserve their charm and generally have dedicated areas that allow for skyscrapers. London, for instance, protects the views of St. Paul's Cathedral, Big Ben, and Westminster Palace, ensuring the buildings can be seen for long distances. So it's not a coincidence that Paris hasn't approved the construction of a skyscraper since the 70s, since the Brusselization era. On the surface, to me at least, the Triangle Tower looks like a building that would be a treasured addition to any city. It will contain a 120-room 4-star hotel, plenty of office spaces, and cultural facilities. And stakeholders claim that the building will bring thousands of jobs into the local economy. And the practicality of the tower seems to be quite sensible, considering that it will be located in the heart of the second largest exhibition center in France, and it will only be 9 kilometers away from the airport. But as I alluded to earlier, the majority of Parisians hate the Triangle Tower project. As a matter of fact, a survey found that 62% of Parisians oppose skyscrapers in principle. There's even a pressure group against this project. The group says that the tower will create a devastating effect on the area and block the city skyline. But I need to make it clear that the tolerance for skyscrapers in Europe vary from city to city and country to country. There are cities like Rome on one extreme that completely reject skyscrapers, and then there are Moscow and Istanbul on the other end, each with over 100 towers. Indeed, based on what you see in the movies, European cities appear not to have many skyscrapers, but many do, and the cities that do keep them hidden from view like eyesores. However, for cities in the United States, the skyscrapers themselves are a massive part of our heritage. Then again, we don't have ancient ruins and medieval castles and cathedrals. The closest thing we have to the Roman Colosseum is Fenway Park, which opened in 1912, and I mean that in all seriousness. That is a treasured landmark here. Most of our grand buildings and monuments are concentrated in DC, and I don't think it's a coincidence that DC is the city that most resembles a European city. With DC's height restriction laws, buildings can be no more than 6 meters taller than the width of the street that it faces. Therefore, buildings are generally no more than 13 stories tall in DC. These laws were established in 1910 for fire safety concerns, not to preserve views. However, in my opinion, the fact that the laws remain in place speaks to the city's value of preservation. But between New York and Chicago, the US was home to the tallest building in the world for over 100 years, from 1890 to 1998. And it has not reclaimed that title since, and does not appear like it will anytime soon. There are many reasons for this, and I'll just highlight 3 of them. First are construction costs. New York's construction costs are almost 3 times more expensive than in Dubai, where the Burj Khalifa is located, and nearly 5 times more expensive than Beijing. Second are regulations. The Federal Aviation Administration restricts the height of buildings in most major cities at 2,000 feet or around 610 meters. These regulations are in place to make commercial flights safer, and some cities that are close to airports are limited to 1,000 feet. And the third reason is simply motivation. Major US cities like New York and Chicago are already world-renowned and have international influence and prestige. According to Business Insider, New York is the most influential city in the world, and Chicago is ranked 8th. All things considered, there's no extra motivation for investors to finance a record-breaking project and to pursue getting around restrictions. And this brings us to certain countries in Asia and the Middle East that are motivated to gain international prestige. There's no question the Burj Khalifa helped put Dubai and the UAE on the map, and it was designed to help the country transition its economy away from oil. Now, if we take a look at this list of the tallest buildings under construction, 4 of the top 5 will be in the Middle East. The tallest will be the Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia, which will be an insane 1,008 meters tall, the first kilometer tall building, much taller than the Burj Khalifa. Jeddah is designed to be the centerpiece of the Jeddah economic city. It's mostly the same concept as Dubai, as Saudi Arabia is trying to diversify its economy away from oil as well. The tower will have 59 elevators, 5 of them double-deckers. It will be so tall that the lifts will not reach the speeds of standard elevators because the change in air pressure would cause nausea. So let's continue down this list. Kuwait is in the top 5, Pakistan, and then the Asian countries start to take over further down the list. Malaysia has 2 towers in the top 10, Indonesia is on here, Sri Lanka, Thailand is on here, and China virtually dominates the rest of the list. Interestingly, China recently set a limit on building heights in the country at 500 meters. These restrictions were largely set in place to rein in developers that at times have been over-ambitious. You see, China has over 70 skyscrapers that broke ground but are on hold and remain unfinished, including the Golden Finance 117. Golden Finance 117 started construction back in 2008 and is massive at almost 600 meters and remains unfinished. Interestingly, both the United States and China possess grand city skylines that symbolize their strength, yet at the same time they both now have sweeping limits on building heights. And this may be a stretch, but I think you can correlate these characteristics with their position as modern superpowers. Then there's Europe in contrast, with such rich and deep-rooted heritage that comparatively see skyscrapers as eyesores to keep hidden away as much as possible. And then finally, there are the up-and-coming cities around the world where skyscrapers symbolize their upward trajectory and represent the ambitions of their populations. A couple of the authors of the articles from my research view skyscrapers as the physical manifestation of market economies, whether it be capitalist or state-owned such as China. And the cool thing is you can deduce a great deal about a city's culture by simply looking at how it values these manifestations. Alright, thank you so much for watching. This video was made in collaboration with the channel Futurology. Futurology is an excellent up-and-coming channel that covers many mega projects from around the world, so go check it out. A link to the Futurology channel is in the description. So I have episode 2 of James Cook's Voyage of Discovery and episode 3 of the subscriber topic series ready for the coming weeks, so make sure to click on the notification bell so you don't miss out. Alright, that's all I have for now. I hope you enjoyed your journey. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I am Neil Scribe, and I'll see you on the next journey.